Readers Entertainment Radio presents Booklights with your host, author Lisa Kessler. Booklights, where we're shining a light on good books.
Happy Monday, everyone. It's a whole new week, and I went on this week because I was doing book research adventures up in Salem, Massachusetts. It was amazing. Anyway, that was really cool, but I am back now, and we are back at it with a fantastic fantasy author that I can't wait for you to meet. And the show was starting in typical Lisa style, you guys know better. I was making sure how to pronounce Zachary. Is it Hagen? Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I asked him in the show. All right, guys, we're totally professional here. So if you haven't read Zachary yet, I'm going to go ahead and read his bio here so you can get to know him, and then we're going to talk fantasy books today. I'm so excited. So anyway, Zachary Hagen is a Minnesota-based fantasy author and editor. He lives there with his wife Claudia and their dog Flynn. When he isn't busy writing his next book or working with an editing client, you can often find him walking around the neighborhood or up hiking. You can learn more on his website, and I put a link to his website right there on the blog talk. So if you're listening live, or if you're later, you can click that link anytime and go check out his books. And I don't want to delay anymore. Zachary, you there?
I am.
Yay! Thanks for being on today. So you have a new book out, Eternity's Mirror, and it's part of the series. Do you want to tell people about the book? Run out and grab it?
Yeah. So it's the sequel to Eternity's Well, and they're both part of the series Eternal Chronicles. And the series follows the story predominantly of Elior Barvadanya, a bastard prince who loses his brother and has to figure out where he went. Of course, the whole series isn't just about that, but that's where it starts out in Eternity's Well, and we see the continuation of that adventure and that storyline in the second book, Eternity's Mirror.
And does Eternity's Mirror stand alone, or should people go back and read the first book first?
People should definitely read the first book first if they want to fully understand everything. I feel like there's enough information in the second book that someone could pick it up and still enjoy it, but you're going to enjoy it more if you've read the first book.
Okay. And for high fantasy, this one, does it start in our world and then go there, or did you build a whole brand new world from the ground up?
It is a whole brand new world. Readers will feel comfortable in it. There's stuff like cell phones and things like that, so it's kind of an urban fantasy, but it breaks from the idea that urban fantasy happens in our world.
Okay, so I like that. So kind of like a parallel verse, maybe?
Yeah, you could think of it like that, like a potential universe that exists somewhere out there.
Okay, and are there other creatures, like I'm always told in the orc and things like that. Do you have other than that, or is everybody human?
Yeah, so the world that we're introduced to first is divided into 6 different countries. One is made entirely of mer people. There's of course, humans, elves, dwarves, fairies, and jinn, which are sort of like, but they're closer to the Arabic tradition of where those stories and myths started.
Oh, very cool. And do you see more books in this world, or are these two it? Do you have ideas for many, many books in this world?
So I am planning a 5-book arc. I am about 45% of the way through the first draft of the 3rd book, so I'm anticipating an October or November release for that one. but yeah, that's clipping along, and then I'll have the last two in the main series releasing next year. I have a couple ideas for some spin-offs that would take place before the series started, but the main arc of story will be finished in 5 books.
Very cool. And what came first to you? Was it this alternate world, or was it the characters? What was the inspiration behind it?
I'd say that the world started forming first. I loved a lot of stories growing up, and so I read the Chronicles of Narnia series when I was a kid, and that definitely influenced it. So did The Last Airbender, Tolkien's work, the Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini, even some of Marissa Meyer's series, The Lunar Chronicles, kind of pieced its way into it in the way that I approached world building in it.
I love that. As you're writing these books, are you a big time plotter? Like, do you have your idea already read all through the files, or are you discovering your world as you write them?
It's kind of a combination. I think the main plot points, the main story beats I know, but I was kind of surprised even this last week writing, filling in the details, I think, is often where I find my surprises in the story, where I'm getting to experience the first time, even though I know, like, what's going to happen, like, the main plot points. The meat of the story is really where all those details and specifics are. So I have a plot that I follow, but I leave a lot of room for creativity in the middle of the process as well.
Nice. So you give yourself a little wiggle room in case a great idea hits.
Yeah, and, sometimes it does happen because, I can plot out a book and feel like I have the right story, and then I'll get to a chapter and it's just not flowing. And to me, that's a signal that, okay, it sounded good when I was plotting, but this doesn't make sense. So sometimes stuff changes or gets tweaked. Yeah, like I had this experience this last week where I was writing and I couldn't figure out why I was having such a hard time sitting down, and I realized I am rushing through these chapters, trying to fit it into the same length as the previous 2 books. But I'm going to need to go back and redo several chapters so that they're longer and then kind of cut them in half, because I have now realized that this book is going to be at least 30 to 40,000 words longer than the first 2 entries in the series. So it's going to be a bigger book.
What? Whoops. So that kind of dovetails into, I want to ask you, since you edit, you're an editor and a writer, how does that affect you? Really good at taking off one hat and putting on the other? Because I have editor friends who have tried to write and they just get squished into rewriting this 3 chapters because they want it to be exactly right before they move on. Is it hard for you, being an editor, to set that eye to just get the words on?
It can be. So I've made a rule for myself that I don't go back and edit. I don't go back and redo anything until the first draft is completely done. So I am okay with the first draft being a dumpster fire, and then I'll go back and do my self-edit. I will rewrite things, pull out the words that I know that are crutch words, and then I work with another editor to help me polish, because I am a firm believer that you need at least 2 sets of eyes on a book before it reaches anyone that you're expecting to pay for it.
For sure. And I know that sometimes I can read it and my brain fills in words that aren't there, or it makes total sense when I put it down because I know what's happening in my head, and I'll get notes from my editor that are like, okay, I'm sure this is clear in your head, but it's not hitting the page yet. I'm like, dang.
Right. Yeah.
So having two sets of eyes is good.
Yeah, and for me, those two sets of eyes are super important. And I have beta readers and other people that will read it before going out. And then because my process works the way it does, I will look for things, and I'll go back to places where I know it needs work. But I don't actually fully read through my book from cover to cover, so to speak, until I'm proofreading it. Because I can do the proofreading myself pretty well. But I actually have to go, I can't read it all the way through, or I get so familiar with the story that I don't catch things when I proofread.
Right. So I was going to ask you, why fantasy? Do you have other genres that you have little ideas dancing around, or is fantasy right in, is that what's in your lane? Why does that pull at you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that like many people in my age group, I grew up with Disney, and so fantasy is such a big part of that. But I definitely have other things kind of on the back burner right now that are just kind of waiting for the right time to be written. I have a sci-fi story that I would love to write. I have sort of a paranormal Stepford meets small town America story that I have sort of burbling, trying to form the complete idea
love
for.
It.
So I'm not pigeonholed into strictly high fantasy, but I definitely like the fantastical side of fiction where you can sort of make anything happen.
Right. I know I write paranormals, and for me, I enjoy having that escapism away from, the mess of the world. You can jump in where magic really does happen, and those kind of things always attract me, is that escapism. I like that when I'm reading too. I like a good escape from, I'm not one who's going to pick up a political thriller typically, because I have enough of that in real life. When I read, I want it to be far away. So I definitely see the attraction there for that.
Yeah, and my books have some politics in them, but it's fantasy politics. I mean, who wants to be bored by all of the partisan debates in our world when we can learn about world conquest between countries of different species and ideals? Right,
for sure. So our listeners are always really curious about your journey to getting a book published, because everybody's so different now, and there's so many different paths to getting your book out there. So did you always want to write a book, or did you become an editor and then get a book idea? How did everything happen for you? How did it unfold?
Yeah, so I actually started out, I've always loved writing, but that didn't immediately lead me to writing as a career. I started out actually as an English teacher who had taken several creative writing classes and enjoyed it, and I had this, thought of a story. I had the first 25,000 words of Eternity's Well written when I graduated college, and I didn't know if I was going to get to it, but then I had this great opportunity. I got sick and I needed to take a quarter off of work, and I had some personal stuff going on that I had to leave the job that I was at. So, for 9 weeks, I didn't have anything else to do, and I thought, well, I have this book that's about a third of the way done. Maybe I should finish writing it. So I did. I wrote the rest of Eternity's Well, and then I had this manuscript, and I had done a ton of research, YouTube videos with other authors, and I was trying to decide between querying it or self-publishing, and then I came across this YouTuber or book YouTuber, Bethany Atazada, and she has her own imprint, her own publishing house that she works within to publish her books. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting idea. So I started my own publishing house, First Horizon Publishing, and I found an editor to work with, and she helped me to hone the book, to get it ready. I distributed it to beta readers, got feedback there, and found a cover designer, formatted the book, which I've since redone the cover and the formatting just because I wanted them to match the second one because I feel like it was better. And, you know, I published it through my imprint using a few different print-on-demand places and, of course, Kindle. And so it's out there, and it's under the name of my imprint. So it's sort of indie publishing, sort of self-publishing because I own the publishing house.
Right.
But we've also started working with other small authors. You know, very, very selective process at this point. We're not taking on a ton of projects, but we do have one other book that First Horizons will be publishing this year.
Oh, very exciting.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And I love that, you know, there's so many options now. When I started ages ago, there was pretty much one path. Self-publishing was just starting, but you got an agent, you got a publisher, and I can remember the fear of working on a book and wondering if this will ever meet readers' eyeballs ever, because if I can't sell it, it goes nowhere. And I love now I'm hybrid, so I'm putting them out myself and with a publisher, and I love the freedom of you can write a book that maybe is harder to pin into one genre, and it can find an audience. You can put it out, you know, yourself, and like you did, make your own imprint, that kind of thing. And I love that there are more books out there for readers, you know, because you don't have to go through the teeny tiny gatekeepers as the publishing houses eat each other.
Right.
I think
and
that's
there's a lot of
really
value,
cool.
I think, in doing hybrid. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love how publishing has evolved, because I know for one of my projects, I feel very strongly that I want that to be, you know, traditionally published. I would like another imprint to take it. I think, you know, for my first book, it was just such a precious idea to me that I didn't trust an editor that I didn't specifically choose with it. I didn't trust a publisher to honor the vision for that series on it by itself, you know, because you can sell a book and market it as series potential in the traditional publishing world, but there's no guarantee that if it doesn't sell well, if they'll pick up the second one, which I think that the self-publishing space is uniquely suited to series, because just like people like to binge watch TV, they love to binge read. So the fastest way to get things out is publishing. So that was
for sure
my main reason for doing, you know, indie hybrid sort of. I'm going to make a publishing house, but it's still going to be me that's publishing it for this first series. Just because I'm like, I got to get them out, and they're going to be good quality. They're going to go through editing. They're going to go through all these different steps that I know that the publishing process demands, but it's going to be faster than a 2-year waiting period for the powers that be to decide that now is the right time to release this for the market.
Right, for sure. And when you were coming up with this idea, and you said the world came to you first, what do you know what inspired it, or just one day were you going, what if, you know, this happened? How did it all come together for you?
I had watched and read so many things that I think that all the building pieces were there. I was actually working at a summer camp as a counselor, and I have horrible ADHD, but it worked to my favor in this case because I would be, standing off to the side supervising the kids, but my brain would be wandering while I'm watching. And, my brain just sort of put together this world, and I'm like, this is a great setting for a story. And I came up with all of this idea that there would be 6 different races, all intelligent, all working symbiotically, but, not 100% friendly, because otherwise there's no conflict. And then, as I was coming up with the political systems for the different countries, Elior and his twin brother Eliam sort of came to me because their mother was a princess who happened to have an extramarital affair, and their father left for an ambassador position right before she was going to tell him, and then this idea of this very tight-knit family unit that's torn apart became such a playground for an amazing story to just blossom from that.
And do you think were you drawn to writing YA age characters because you were teaching then, or did the story just fit better with younger characters?
It's sort of between YA and adult. The characters are between 19 and 22 at the start of the series, so it's not exactly YA, but it's definitely YA in style, and it's largely because I enjoyed reading those books, even into my 20s. But I always thought it was ridiculous that these 16-year-olds were going off on these magical adventures.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I love teaching. I think that there are wonderful 16-year-olds that are very mature, but the majority of them just would fall apart if they actually had to do that. So you have adult brains writing people that are 16, 17 going off on these amazing adventures, and I'm like, it's not realistic. For me, I would believe it more if they were at least 20, because a 20-year-old is still incredibly whiny and so underdeveloped, but they are at least far enough along that they can handle a little bit more of this incredible weight that a magical world puts on someone.
Right. They're not going to curl up in a ball.
Which is part of the reason also why I did it through my own imprint, just because I would have had to age the characters down and change a lot of things for it to make sense for the YA age group, whereas with indie and self-publishing, there's this great kind of niche that myself and other authors are carving out called new adult.
Right.
Which is basically this combination of things from the adult categories of fiction and young adult, where you have the YA style of stories where it's not constant political upheaval and constant facts and all these different things. It's a lot cleaner and more in the style of a YA, but you have an older people that are acting
on college
like
or something.
They are their age. Yeah, like their college age.
Right. And do you watch some of the fantasy shows and movies? Do some of them do you have favorites that we should all watch? Do some of them inspire you to go, oh my gosh, I need to get back to the keyboard? That kind of thing. We've all been binging during this plague, so.
I would say one thing that was inspiring, I don't know if it's still on Prime. I hope it is, because it's fantastic. But Grimm was really interesting to me.
I love Grimm. Yes.
It's great. That actually sort of, the whole culture of the Wesen is sort of the background inspiration for my Stepford Meets Paranormal I actually have a working title for that. I'm thinking it may be a serial fiction series, almost like a sitcom. It's called White Raven, and it's about a gated community where one human family happens to move in, and everyone else is something else.
Oh, and they all have to hide it because the humans moved in?
Yep, except it doesn't stay hidden for long.
I bet. Yeah, I loved Grimm and how they live among us kind of thing, and I'm always a sucker for that kind of show. And did you watch Umbrella Academy? I loved that one.
I haven't gotten to it yet, but I want to. It's on my list.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's really good, but the time traveling in it is wild, and it's a really great, fantastic fantasy but in a reality, kind of world, kind of like Grimm. Trying to think of some other ones that were in that same kind of thing, because there's so many high fantasy ones too that, like, Game of Thrones was giant, and now that Wheel of Time show on I think that's Amazon Prime, right? But
right.
I'm always a sucker for the ones.
LCR.
Right, yeah. But I'm always a sucker for the ones that manage to get some fantasy, under the humans' noses in our world.
Right. That was one reason I really enjoyed, like the Percy Jackson books as well. All three, I guess, of the series that Rick Riordan wrote in that universe.
Oh, right. Didn't that become a movie too? I think. I don't know.
It became a really horrible movie.
Oh no!
I loved those. I loved those books, and then I was super excited. Actually, I watched The Lightning Thief first, and then I read the books, and I was like, that was a bad movie. And then they came out with Sea of Monsters, and it was even worse. I'm like, they better not make another one. So I think now that Disney has acquired Fox, they have plans to make a Disney Plus series out of it, which I would definitely watch. But it also has told me that if my series ever gets that popular, I am going to insist on script approval before they ever start shooting anything. Well,
I do think that when they when they adapt a series of books, it's so much better if they do it TV style so that they can really dig into it, because when they take a series of books and then they try to make a movie, they always seem to, leave out so much that it doesn't always stay together,
It loses its nuance. I think even what the newer adaptation of the Lemony Snicket books did on Netflix, I think even that was a great solution where each book was divided into 2 larger episodes. I think that's a great approach. But Lemony Snicket's books were relatively short. I think that I feel like my first book would work best as a mini-series. It could be a TV series, but then at that point you would have to add stuff in, which is fine. I think that could be done, but it would definitely, at that point, I think especially since I will be taking a class in screenwriting this summer for my master's, at that point I would be like, I'd like to at least be on the team of writers so that we don't add things that don't make sense.
Right. Well, we're running out of time, but how can readers get in touch with you if they read your book and they're excited? Are you on social media?
I am. So Zachary Hagen _writes on both TikTok and on Instagram. And then, of course, I have my website, Zachary Hagen Writes. There's a sign up to get onto my newsletter for that, and I will actually be starting a blog on there as well.
Great. So everybody click that link that is on the Blog Talk site and get in touch with Zachary. Thanks so much for being here today. It was great having you on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to be here.
Thanks for joining us on Booklights. Be sure to connect with us at www.readersentertainment.com for articles, blogs, videos, and podcasts that matter to readers.